Commander Tejo stood on the bridge of the Imperial scout vessel Dominion, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the polished floor. His eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display of a small blue planet. "Another primitive world," he said to his second-in-command, Officer Jaiwu. "Scan complete. They have nuclear technology but nothing that could challenge even our smallest vessels." The Galactic Empire of the Seven Suns had followed the same procedure for centuries. Find new worlds, study them briefly, then bring them under Imperial control. Worlds that submitted became vassals. Those that fought were crushed. It was simple and efficient. "This planet calls itself Earth," Jaiwu reported, her fingers moving across the control panel. "They have only visited their own moon and sent basic probes to nearby planets. They have no idea we exist." Tejo nodded. "Perfect. Standard protocol then. We observe for 3 cycles, then contact their leaders." The Dominion settled into orbit around one of the outer planets in the system, its cloaking technology making it invisible to Earth's primitive sensors. From this distance, they could monitor all communications and study the humans without being detected. "Their military capabilities?" Tejo asked. "Laughable," said Jaiwu. "They fight among themselves constantly. Their weapons would not scratch our hull." Tejo smiled. These missions were becoming boring. Too many easy conquests had made the Empire careless. Still, protocols existed for a reason. He ordered his crew to begin the standard assessment. For 3 days, the Dominion's computers analyzed Earth's communications, military bases, and power structures. The humans were divided into many nations, always arguing and competing. This would make conquest even easier. Divided planets never put up much resistance. On the 4th day, something strange happened. Officer Kihyun at the sensor station called Tejo over with urgency in his voice. "Commander, look at this reading," he said, pointing to a strange pattern on his screen. Tejo frowned. "What am I looking at?" "I'm not sure," Kihyun admitted. "It's like a field surrounding the entire solar system. Our sensors only detected it when we tried to send a probe closer to Earth." Tejo had never seen anything like it. The field was invisible to normal scans but seemed to create a barrier around the entire system. Still, it didn't appear dangerous. "Send the probe through," he ordered. The small probe moved toward the barrier. As it touched the invisible field, it simply vanished. Not destroyed, there was no explosion or debris. It simply ceased to exist. Silence fell over the bridge. "Get me Admiral Dohayan," Tejo ordered, his voice tight. Within an hour, 3 massive Imperial destroyers had arrived. The Admiral's flagship, the Eternal Dominion, dwarfed Tejo's scout vessel. Tejo now stood in the Admiral's command center, explaining what they had discovered. "Interesting," said Admiral Dohayan, stroking his chin. "In all my years, I've never encountered a defensive system like this. But it makes no difference. If they have this technology, they are either more advanced than we thought or are being protected by someone else. Should we retreat and report this to the Council?" Tejo asked. Admiral Dohayan laughed. "The Empire does not retreat, Commander. We will proceed as planned." The Admiral ordered a full scan of the barrier. The results were puzzling. The barrier wasn't technological, at least not any technology the Empire recognized. It seemed to exist partly in dimensions the Imperial scientists barely understood. As the fleet prepared to approach Earth directly, the communications officer called out in surprise. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission, but I can't identify the source." On the main screen, strange symbols appeared, then transformed into Imperial Standard language. "The humans are marked. They exist under protection. Deviation from this directive has consequences." The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Admiral Dohayan frowned deeply. "A trick," he declared. "The humans must have detected us somehow and are trying to scare us away." "But sir," said the science officer, "this transmission didn't come from Earth. It came from everywhere." Dohayan dismissed the warning. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds. They had not faced a serious military challenge in 6 centuries. One strange message would not change their plans. "Prepare the fleet for approach," he ordered. "We will show these humans and whoever sent this message the true power of the Empire." The 3 massive destroyers began moving toward Earth, weapons systems coming online. What they didn't know was that they were about to challenge forces beyond their comprehension, ancient guardians who had watched over Earth since before humans walked upright. The Empire was about to learn that some worlds were simply not theirs to take. Admiral Dohayan stood tall as the 3 Imperial destroyers moved toward Earth. The planet grew larger on the main screen, a blue jewel against the blackness of space. The warning message still bothered him, though he would never admit this to his crew. "Status report," he demanded. Officer Minji looked up from her station. "All systems normal, Admiral. We will reach Earth orbit in 30 minutes. Dohayan nodded. He had conquered 87 worlds in his career. This would be number 88. The Empire always followed the same steps: show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and then either accept their new subjects or crush any resistance. Simple and effective. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Juno, "we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet. They seem to have detected us. This was unexpected. Imperial ships should be invisible to primitive radar systems. Perhaps these humans were more advanced than they had thought." "Show me their reactions," ordered Dohayan. The screen filled with images from Earth's news broadcasts. Humans everywhere were looking up at the sky in fear and wonder. Some prayed. Some hid. Military forces around the planet scrambled fighter jets and readied missiles. Dohayan smiled. "Their panic is understandable. Let them see our power." He ordered the forward destroyer to power up its main cannon, not to fire, but as a demonstration. The massive weapon began to glow, visible even from Earth's surface. This display had broken the will of many civilizations before any shot was fired. Then something strange happened. Every screen on the bridge flickered. The ship's lights dimmed for 3 seconds. When they came back on, every screen showed the same message, now in perfect Imperial language. "Second warning. The humans are not yours. Turn back." Dohayan's face darkened with anger. "Trace that transmission. Find who is interfering with my ships." The technical crew worked frantically, but could find no source. It was as if the message had originated from inside their own computers. "Ignore it," Dohayan ordered. "Continue approach." Commander Tejo stepped closer to the Admiral. "Sir, with respect, perhaps we should investigate this warning before proceeding. In all my years of service, I've never seen anything like this." Dohayan turned to him with cold eyes. "Are you suggesting the Empire should be frightened by words, Commander? This is clearly a trick." "But what if it's not?" Tejo asked quietly. Before Dohayan could respond, Science Officer Salmon called out from her station. "Admiral, I'm detecting energy readings unlike anything in our database. They're coming from everywhere." The space around the 3 destroyers began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot ground. Small points of light appeared, floating around the ships. They were beautiful, like tiny stars. "What are those?" Dohayan demanded. No one had an answer. The points of light moved in patterns, almost as if they were communicating with each other. They did not appear threatening, but their presence was impossible to explain. Dohayan's patience ended. "Enough of this. Launch landing craft. We will proceed with the conquest." 20 small shuttles detached from the destroyers, each carrying 50 Imperial soldiers. They moved toward Earth's atmosphere, weapons ready. As the shuttles descended, a voice spoke directly into the mind of every Imperial crew member. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It simply was. "We gave you warnings. You did not heed them." The points of light suddenly rushed toward the shuttles. When they touched the Imperial craft, the shuttles simply stopped. Not crashed, not exploded, they simply hung motionless in space, frozen in time. On the bridge of the flagship, panic began to spread. Nothing in Imperial technology could explain what they were seeing.
Full power to engines. Dohayan shouted. Prepare main weapons. The ship's engines roared to life, but they didn't move.
It was as if they were caught in invisible amber.
The weapons powered up but would not fire.
The points of light now surrounded all three destroyers, growing brighter. Then, one by one, they merged into a form vaguely humanoid but made of pure energy. It was enormous, the size of a small moon.
This glowing entity spoke again, its thoughts entering every Imperial mind.
The humans develop according to their own path. They have been watched since their beginning. They are part of something you cannot understand.
This is your final warning. Leave the system and never return.
For the first time in his long career, Admiral Dohayan felt true fear. Whatever power they faced was beyond Imperial science.
Beyond Imperial understanding.
"Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper.
The entity seemed to consider the question. "We are the Watchers.
We were ancient when your empire was not even a dream.
Some worlds are marked. Earth is one. You will leave now."
With these words, the light being vanished. The Imperial ships were suddenly free. The shuttles returned to normal, their confused pilots quickly returning to the destroyers. Admiral Dohayan, his face pale, gave an order he had never given before. The Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion hung in space, its massive engines silent. Admiral Dohayan paced the command bridge, his pride wounded by the order to retreat he had given just hours before. Behind him, the officers exchanged nervous glances. "Plot a new course," Dohayan suddenly announced.
"We will approach from the dark side of their moon." Commander Tejo stepped forward.
"Admiral, with respect, the Council should be informed before we make another attempt."
Dohayan turned sharply. "And tell them what? That the mighty Imperial fleet was turned away by lights and voices? That we fled without firing a single shot?"
His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper.
"No Imperial Admiral has ever retreated from a Class 3 civilization. I will not be the first."
The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew the Admiral's career, and possibly his life, would end if he returned in defeat without a compelling reason. Primitive humans should not have been able to resist.
"Perhaps," offered Science Officer Salmon carefully, "we encountered an automated defense system left by some ancient race.
If we approach differently, we might bypass it."
Dohayan seized on this explanation. "Exactly. Prepare a smaller force.
3 shuttles only, with cloaking devices at maximum power. We will land near their largest power center." 6 hours later, 3 small black shuttles detached from the Eternal Dominion, each carrying 20 of the Empire's elite soldiers. Captain Jinho led the mission, his face grim behind his helmet visor. Unlike the Admiral, he had seen the strange lights up close during the first attempt. "Maintain radio silence," he ordered his team.
"Surface approach in 15 minutes.
The shuttles slipped past the moon and descended toward Earth, their advanced cloaking technology making them invisible to human radar. As they entered the atmosphere, Captain Jinho allowed himself to hope that perhaps they had indeed bypassed whatever defense had stopped them before. That hope died when the air around the shuttles began to shimmer. "Energy field detected," shouted the pilot.
"Same signature as before."
But this time, the response was different. Instead of freezing the shuttles, the field allowed them to continue descending.
The strange shimmer followed them down, surrounding each shuttle like a bubble.
On Earth below, humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware of what approached from above. The shuttles aimed for a remote area outside a major city, where they could land undetected and begin operations. As they touched down in a forested clearing, Captain Jinho ordered his troops to deploy. The elite soldiers filed out, weapons ready, scanning the surroundings.
Nothing happened. No lights. No voices in their heads. Just an ordinary Earth forest with birds singing in the trees. "Perimeter secure," reported Lieutenant Hyojin. "No signs of resistance." Captain Jinho nodded cautiously. Move toward the city. Remember, this is just reconnaissance.
We identify their leaders and return to the ship. The Imperial soldiers moved like shadows through the forest. Their black armor absorbed light, and their movements were silent. These were the best warriors the Empire had, veterans of 100 conquests. They had gone perhaps half a kilometer when Lieutenant Hyojin stopped suddenly.
Captain, look at this.
Ahead of them stood what appeared to be a human child, a small boy of about 8 years old. He wore simple clothes and showed no fear at the sight of 20 armed alien soldiers. "How can he see us?" whispered one of the soldiers. "Our suits should make us invisible to human eyes."
The boy smiled.
Then he spoke, but the voice that came from him was ancient and powerful, the same voice they had heard before.
"We allowed you to land so you could understand."
Suddenly, the forest around them was gone. The soldiers found themselves standing not on Earth, but in a vast space filled with stars and swirling galaxies. The boy still stood before them, but now he glowed with inner light. "What is this?" demanded Captain Jinho.
"Where have you taken us?"
"You are still where you were," said the boy. "It is your perception that has changed.
Now you will see what you need to see."
The stars around them shifted, forming images. The soldiers watched as the history of Earth unfolded before them, the rise and fall of species, the slow evolution of humans, and always, watching over everything, beings of pure energy. "Long ago," continued the boy, "when your ancestors were still swimming in primordial oceans, we chose certain worlds to watch and protect. Earth is one of many such worlds.
Each develops differently. Each follows its own path without outside interference." Captain Jinho found his voice. "Who are you?" The boy smiled again. "We have been called many things by many species. Guardian, Watcher, Precursor. Names do not matter.
What matters is that you understand, Earth is not available for conquest." With a gesture, the boy brought them back to the forest. But now the soldiers could see what was hidden before, a fine network of energy that covered everything, connecting all life on the planet.
"This is your demonstration," said the boy. "Tell your empire what you have seen. Tell them Earth is marked and protected." The boy vanished.
At that same moment, every piece of Imperial technology, weapons, communication devices, even their armored suits, shut down completely. Captain Jinho looked at his useless equipment, then at his equally stunned soldiers. "Back to the shuttles," he ordered quietly.
"We're leaving."
The Imperial Council chamber fell into stunned silence as Captain Jinho finished his report. 12 council members, the highest authorities in the Empire of Seven Suns, exchanged uneasy glances across the massive black table. The holographic recording of what the captain's team had experienced on Earth played one final time before flickering out.
"This is unprecedented," said Councillor Yunji, breaking the silence.
Her silvery uniform gleamed under the chamber's blue lights.
"In 6 centuries of Imperial expansion, we have never encountered such a phenomenon."
Admiral Dohyan stood rigid beside Captain Jinho, his face a careful mask hiding his fear. The Admiral had been summoned back to explain his failure, a career-ending event for most. But the recordings from the ground team had possibly saved him from execution. The beings called themselves Watchers or Guardians, Captain Jinho repeated. His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. They appeared to exist as energy forms but could take physical shape when they chose to communicate with us.
High Councillor Taeyeon leaned forward.
As the oldest member of the council, his word carried the most weight.
"And they specifically said Earth is protected? That it cannot be conquered?"
"Yes, High Councillor. They said Earth is one of many marked worlds that develop without outside interference." The council murmured among themselves. This information challenged everything the Empire believed about its place in the galaxy.
Councillor Minji, head of Imperial Science, spoke next. "We need to search the ancient archives.
If these beings have existed as long as they claim, there may be records of previous encounters."
High Councillor Taeyeon nodded. "Do it immediately."
The meeting adjourned, but reconvened just 3 days later.
The atmosphere was even more tense than before.
Councillor Minji's team had worked without rest, searching the deepest and oldest Imperial archives, records dating back to the Empire's founding and beyond. "We found something," Minji announced, her voice uncharacteristically nervous. It was buried in pre-Imperial records, data so old it had to be translated multiple times. She activated the central display. Ancient symbols appeared, slowly converting to modern Imperial language. "These are records from the Koru civilization, one of the precursors to our empire, from nearly 8,000 years ago. They describe encountering worlds surrounded by webs of light that could not be approached. When they attempted to land on one such world, their ships were held by forces beyond understanding." The council listened in growing discomfort as Minji continued. "The Koru called these planets nursery worlds. They believed they were under the protection of beings who had ascended beyond the physical many millions of years earlier." "And were these nursery worlds ever conquered?" asked Counselor Yunji. Minji's expression darkened. "According to these records, the Koru attempted to force their way onto one such world. Their entire fleet, over 300 ships, simply vanished. No debris. No distress calls. They just ceased to exist." The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. "There's more," Minji added quietly. "The records suggest there are hundreds of these protected worlds scattered throughout the galaxy. Each one is apparently part of some vast experiment or observation project by these ascended beings." High Counselor Taeyong closed his eyes briefly. "So humans aren't special because of who they are?" "No," confirmed Minji. "They're special because of who watches over them." The truth was difficult for many council members to accept. The Empire had expanded for centuries with nothing to challenge its power. The idea that there were beings so far beyond them, beings who could erase an Imperial fleet with a thought, was humbling and terrifying. "What do we do?" asked a younger counselor, his voice strained. "If we cannot conquer Earth, do we simply avoid it? And what of these other protected worlds?" High Counselor Taeyong stood slowly. At his full height, he was still imposing despite his age. "We must be practical. The Empire survives because it adapts. If these worlds cannot be conquered, we must find another approach." He turned to Admiral Dohayan, who had been standing silently throughout the meeting. "Admiral, you will return to Earth. But not with destroyers and soldiers. You will take diplomats and scholars. You will establish contact with the humans as equals." Dohayan looked stunned. "As equals? But they are technologically centuries behind us." "And yet," Taeyang said softly, "they have protectors who could destroy our entire empire with a thought." "Sometimes, Admiral, power comes in unexpected forms." The council voted unanimously to approve this new approach. It was the first time in Imperial history that a world would be approached with offers of alliance rather than demands of submission. As the meeting ended, Counselor Minji approached High Counselor Taeyong privately. "There's one detail I didn't share with the full council," she said quietly. "The Koru records mention something else about these nursery worlds." "What?" asked Taeyong. "They are not just being protected. They are being evaluated. The ascended beings are watching these civilizations develop, waiting for something." "Waiting for what?" Minji's eyes met his. The records weren't clear. But they suggested that when a species on a nursery world reaches a certain point in their development, they either join the Watchers, or they are removed from existence. Taeyong felt a chill run through him. "Then our future may depend on how the humans develop." "Yes," said Minji. "And we have no idea what criteria the Watchers use to judge." 1 year after the failed conquest attempt, the elegant meeting room of the United Nations buzzed with nervous energy. Diplomats from every human nation gathered to meet the Imperial representatives for the third time. The first 2 meetings had been cautious, with humans suspicious of the aliens' sudden friendly approach after their ships had been spotted in orbit. Ambassador Jiho of the Imperial Diplomatic Corps adjusted his translation device and took a deep breath. Unlike the massive Admiral Dohayan who had first discovered Earth, Jiho was chosen for his gentle demeanor and skill with words. Yet he couldn't stop his hands from trembling slightly. Not because he feared the humans, but because he knew they were watching. Distinguished representatives of Earth, he began, his voice translated into 20 human languages simultaneously. Today we offer a formal treaty of alliance between our civilizations. We bring technology, medical knowledge, and access to galactic trade networks. The human delegates whispered among themselves. The offer was generous, suspiciously so. The Empire was clearly far more advanced than Earth. Why would they treat humans as equals? United Nations Secretary General Park stood up. Ambassador Jiho, your offers are generous. But we must ask why. 6 months ago, we didn't even know your empire existed. Now you offer us technology that would advance our civilization by centuries. What do you want in return? A reasonable question. One that Jiho had carefully prepared for. He could not tell the truth, that the Empire feared the Watchers who protected Earth. That every Imperial representative sent to Earth was chosen for their exceptional calmness because they all knew invisible eyes monitored every interaction. The galaxy is vast but resources are limited, Jiho answered smoothly. The Empire has found that peaceful alliances benefit everyone more than conflict. Your world has unique biological diversity and cultural perspectives that would enrich the galactic community. It wasn't entirely a lie. Just not the main reason. As the meeting continued, Dr. Minji sat quietly in the back, recording everything. Once the Empire's leading xenobiologist, she had requested this assignment specifically. Her official task was to study human biology and culture, but her true mission was far more important, to understand why the Watchers had chosen humans for protection. 6 months of observation had yielded few answers. Humans were not particularly advanced. They fought constantly among themselves. They damaged their own environment. Yet something about them had attracted the attention of beings who had ascended beyond physical form millions of years ago. Later that evening, in her private quarters at the Imperial Embassy, Minji reviewed her notes. The walls were covered with images of human art, literature, biology, and history. She had immersed herself in everything human, searching for the answer. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Enter, she called. Ambassador Jiho stepped inside, looking exhausted after the long negotiations. The treaty will be signed tomorrow, he said, dropping into a chair. The humans have agreed to all our terms. They're suspicious, but the technology we've offered is too valuable to refuse. Minji nodded absently, still staring at her wall of human data. Do you ever wonder, she asked quietly, if we're approaching this all wrong? Jiho looked puzzled. What do you mean? We're trying to understand why the Watchers protect humans by analyzing the humans themselves. But what if it has nothing to do with what humans are now? What if it's about what they might become? She pointed to a timeline of human evolution she had created. Look at their development rate. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. From simple computers to global networks in less than a century. They're accelerating exponentially. Jiho considered this. You think the Watchers are protecting their potential? Maybe. Or maybe they're just one of many experiments. The Watchers might have hundreds of protected species, each developing differently. The conversation was interrupted by a strange shimmer in the air. Both Imperials froze. They had seen this effect before. A small point of light appeared between them, hovering silently. They're here, whispered Jiho, fear evident in his voice despite his diplomatic training. The light didn't form into a shape this time. It simply hung there, as if listening. Then, unexpectedly, it moved toward Minji's wall of research. It hovered before the evolutionary timeline, pulsing gently. Minji, overcoming her fear, stepped forward. Are we right? Is that why you protect them? Their potential? The light pulsed once more, then split into multiple points that arranged themselves across her research wall, highlighting different aspects of human civilization, their art, their science, their conflicts, their cooperation. A soft voice entered their minds, all paths matter. All experiments continue. Your understanding grows. The lights merged back into one, then faded away.
Jiho and Minji stood in stunned silence. Finally, Minji spoke. I think we just got an answer. Not the full answer, but something.
What? Asked Jiho. That we're all part of something larger than empires or species.
That maybe the humans aren't the only ones being watched and evaluated.
As dawn broke over Earth, the treaty was signed.
Humans celebrated what they saw as their introduction to the galactic community.
They didn't know that the mighty empire represented by these visitors approached them with hidden fear. And in the vast spaces between stars, ancient eyes continued their endless watch, patient beyond human or imperial understanding.